In 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back everybody. Jeff Frick here, coming to you from Running Remote, another collaboration between Work20XX and the team at Running Remote, Liam and Igor and Anna. We're really excited to be back for our second year as it starts getting loud here in the Quonset hut in Austin. We're excited for our next guest. He's Nick Francis, the chairman of Help Scout. Nick, great to see you.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to that title, Jeff.
Well, let's start there. So you started this thing, I think you said 15 years ago.
Yeah, 2011.
And recently decided to move out of the CEO job to take a chairman job. And I think I heard in a podcast, this is the first time in a very long time, you might wake up on a Monday morning and not have something immediately to do. How did that decision come about? How's it going so far?
You know, I spent 15 years building the company. I'm so proud of what we created. My co-founders still work there and I'm still involved on a regular basis. I just felt like it was time for someone new to take on the reins. It's been 15 years and it's time for me to do something new. So we'll see how it goes.
So I know one of your things you're doing to get you going on the next chapter is spending time with other founders, other CEOs, and bringing those folks together. Because I know being a CEO can be a lonely job a lot of times. You know, you got just tough decisions that maybe you can share, maybe you can't. So one, if you could share a little bit about the journey of a startup CEO.
Sure.
And then how you're taking that lessons and helping some of these other folks that are just getting started.
Yeah, there's no support built into the org structure for the CEO, right? When you're at the top of the org chart, that's when it gets, to use your words, lonely, right? And so there were two things that were transformational on my journey that helped me grow and mature as a CEO. One was having a coach. So somebody who was able to help me see around corners, who was able to give me hard criticism when I needed it without any threat of organizational dynamics or power dynamics. And so having a coach be able to speak into the day-to-day and some of the challenges that I was facing as a leader, to run a 360 to get a sense of what all of our stakeholders thought of my performance. And then also what was transformational for me was having a CEO peer group that was really close, group of friends and people who trusted each other, who were going through the same stuff, and to be able to kind of work with them to figure out like how to lead, to be inspired by how they lead. And so today I actually facilitate that CEO group and I get to work with founders just to try to give back a lot of what I received for 15 years as a CEO and try to offer that sort of support so they can be successful.
I'm curious what kind of the mechanics are in terms of how big is the group, how frequently do you meet, how long are you together when you meet, what's kind of the pacing to make it really worthwhile for you?
Yeah, so the OG CEO group that I was a part of for years, we meet together once a month, and then we actually spend time in person for a few days every 6 months. And so otherwise there's just like a chat and signal where we're kind of talking through hard things that are going on in the companies and trying to figure things out together. But being able to have a group of seasoned professionals that share a lot of the same values as you. So that's typically what's most important in a CEO peer group, is a shared sense of values. And so these people are all people that we founded our companies together like 15 to 17 years ago.
That's great.
And we've been trying to build things for the long term. And so that's very different from a founder that might just be looking for the next exit.
Right.
So that shared sense of values gives us quite a bond, and we're able to add a lot of value, help each other out.
So from the outside looking in, it feels like today is the most chaotic moment that we've ever lived in.
Yeah.
For lots of different reasons, but I'm sure everybody feels that way in all the moments, and they exist. At the benefit of hindsight, in this group over 15 years and the companies of developing, is this the craziest time we live in, or is it just the one that we currently are inhabiting? Are anything fundamentally different in how you're instructing CEOs to run their businesses and take care of themselves and take care of their people?
I think this is a pretty fundamental shift. So, I was much younger when the internet came around. That's the only thing I could really,
a little less salt, a little more pepper, right?
Yeah, but that's the only thing I could really compare it to, because I was learning to code right when the internet came of age, and boy, was that an incredibly exciting time. And it feels a lot like that here. I'd say that the pandemic was another big shift. So in the last 6 years, we've seen two fundamental kind of tectonic shifts that I didn't see the previous 10 years before that. And so I do think that we're navigating something very significant. But as opposed to the pandemic, which was pretty scary, lives were at stake. This one's largely very exciting. And there's a lot of really great tools that are enabling things that we just would have thought would have been magic, as many as 3 or 4 years ago. And so for an entrepreneur, this is heaven.
Yeah. One of the concepts that came up in the last keynote, speaker was talking about having, he called it his war council.
Yeah.
And he had like a grumpy CFO and an overly enthusiastic customer representative. So he had assembled a group of virtual personas to help him think through challenges. That's got to be a huge benefit, because I've always said the hardest thing for a CEO to get is bad news, because nobody wants to share it until, unfortunately, maybe it's too late to do anything about it. So you got to be thinking, wow, maybe I can actually have a trusted confidant with the context of the company, that I don't necessarily have to put anything at risk to get some of this constructive negative things, and I want to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, Wade is operating at the bleeding edge. It's funny you brought up the War Council, because I use that same skill, believe it or not. He shared it with me, and it's an incredible way to think through big decisions that you have, or even small decisions that you have to make as a CEO. And so a lot of times, you're not going to get advice from your colleagues in the job, or like the hard news,
right?
Or like maybe here's why you shouldn't do this. And the War Council is quite effective at giving you like different perspectives. And so the way it generates like 3 other perspectives, and each one is making a bet as to whether they think it's the right decision. And it's really great to have that sort of perspective. So these tools are just so fun to use. And they do operate as greater co-pilots. I feel like my work is just higher quality as a result of leveraging them.
Right. So in your talk, you talked about calibration across the organization in the context of a question as to what is performance, right? What are we trying to get to, and what are we judging people on? And your point was very interesting, that it's not a steady state, and that we constantly need to be making sure that everybody is on the same page, going towards the same direction, having the same values. It's not static, right?
In a remote company, at least in my experience, hard conversations don't tend to happen as often unless they are part of your operating system and your operating model as a company. And so you need certain healthy accountability practices that normalize and make space for hard conversations to happen in a safe space. And calibration, the thing that you were just referencing, is just a way of managers and leaders getting together and saying like, here's where I'm evaluating an individual. Does that seem right? And literally aligning on what great looks like. You might have a rubric of all these jobs and descriptions, but are you actually stress testing them on a regular basis alongside other managers to determine what success looks like? And by doing calibration, you minimize bias in the organization, and you really are able to improve your rubric. It's not just a document that sits in a static place, it's actually dynamic, it's being updated. And so calibrations are just a way for managers to get together and agree on that.
And was it a formal process on a formal timeline? So that was...
Yeah, so it's part of the
you're not doing anything wrong,
process.
We do this, right?
Yeah, so it's part of the
time.
performance review process. So for us at Help Scout, it was every 6 months. Managers in a given function all get together and they say, okay, where did we land on performance reviews for all these individuals? Does anybody agree or disagree? Right? And so by doing those calibrations, it's tough. You got to be vulnerable, but it's really for the best for the company and for the employees to get another look at how your performance is being evaluated.
Because I think you talked about too, kind of breaking apart the tasks and the roles of the individual and trying to keep an eye on the ball, which is organizational success. Let's not get over wrapped up on the measures when we need to keep focused on what really the true objective is.
Yeah, I think that's really at the core of this AI transformation and this moment that we're in right now is, a framework that I've heard that really resonated with me is that the job is still the job, but the tasks are going to change radically.
Right.
So as it pertains to being a software engineer or a designer, those are still jobs and very valuable ones in software companies, but boy, the tasks associated with getting that job done and doing it well are changing in a radical way.
I love that framing. I love that because the tools and everything is changing, the data you have underneath is changing, but the job of whatever that top level objective is still the same.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, good framing. All right, so another thing, Gallup recently released a workplace report. I think like 1 in 4 people or 1 in 5 people reported being not engaged at work. It's a huge problem when people are not really checked in or checked out. You talked about on stage focusing on the right people on engagement so that your high performers are the people that are engaged and giving you that marginal effort. How did you kind of make sure that they're engaged? How did you focus on engagement? Because I think that's such an unlock if you can get people pulling on the oars just 10% harder, 15% harder, 20% harder. And if they're doing it, it's not for you, it's for the other person in the boat, right? We know that for sure.
You know, there's two sides to engagement. From a management and leadership perspective, you want to invest in every single person in your organization and ensure that they can do their best work at your place of work, right? But the reality is that not everybody's going to be able to do their best work in your company. And so I try to look at it as, look, we're going to invest in this person to the greatest possible extent. But when we look at engagement data, where typically there's a lot of feedback given to the organization that's anonymized. And so you're just getting this anonymous feedback about what you need to do better. Effectively, what we do at Help Scout is we remove all the low performers from the engagement data, and we only focus on feedback from the high performers. And that doesn't mean we're not invested in getting low performers to be high performers,
right.
But in the aggregate, when you're just looking at a bunch of data, I think it's really important to focus on your high performers and spend most of your time making sure you're creating a culture and an environment that's exciting to them.
Yeah, that one caused a little controversy in the crowd and the questions.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I think people thought you were leaving the low performers behind, and you're just like, no, you got resources. Focus where you're going to get the highest
engagement
ROI.
Surveys. A lot of people don't see the other side of the engagement survey, where you just have a bunch of anonymized data, and you're trying to see the signal, and you're trying to be able to find the forest through the trees. So I think in those cases, it's really important to just bifurcate it and say, look, I'm only going to focus on the comments from the high performers.
Right. The other thing that you talked about, which resonated with me, is you talked about the fun part of being on the steep part of the learning curve, which is good if you're in tech, because it feels like we're always on the steep part of the learning curve.
Right.
It's just when you think you got it, there's something new that comes down the pike. How do you inspire that within your people? How do you keep that curiosity and that drive for curiosity hot in the culture of the company? Because if you're not thinking that way, you're not going to last very long, I don't think.
Yeah, that's certainly something that's innate to me as an entrepreneur, and it's hard for me to realize sometimes that that's not how everyone operates. There's this word that's come up as part of this sort of AI transformation moment that we're in, and it's agency, right? People who have high agency or a high level of curiosity with regard to learning how these tools work and learning how these tools can help them do better work and be more performant in their jobs, you know, it takes a lot of agency in order to kind of make your way to the other side and see some of the benefits of this tooling. And it's true, like all we can do is kind of show, like do as much show and tell as we can and say, look at this incredible thing that we've built. Look at what AI is making possible in our organization. And the more you can try to socialize those things and create a safe space for people to use their agency, I think it's there in everyone. In some folks, it might just be dormant. You got to wake it up. But all of us have the capacity to be high agency individuals that can add massive value to a business. But you got to unlock it for yourself. It's individual, and there's only so much the company can do to bring it out.
Right. But you said, giving them the tools, like one of your quotes earlier was use all your tokens, right?
Yeah,
Don't leave any of it on the field to mix analogies.
Yeah, I think there are any leaders that are just thinking about leveraging AI to cut costs and improve productivity, that's a pretty short-sighted view. I think we're in a moment where we need to be doing a lot of experimentation, and we need to be learning at as fast a pace as we can to what the next phase of this world looks like. And
right.
Man, to just be using it to cut costs, it seems like such a sad way of approaching this whole thing.
It happens every time, right? I mean, that was the initial cloud, deployments and all these things. They always start with the cost cutting and the efficiency, and it's the smart person in the corner that says, no, we can build a new business, or we can transform our business, or we can do something now that we could never do, and get on that top line growth number and stop worrying necessarily about saving money, because you can't save to grow.
Yeah, bring everybody along, and I think that's the key to growing the business and having a lot of fun along the way.
Well, Nick, thanks for stopping by. Congrats on your next chapter. I have a feeling you won't be just counseling other people for very long before you jump back in and get your hands dirty.
Thank you, Jeff. I think you're probably right.
All right. He's Nick. I'm Jeff. You're watching Work 20XX at Running Remote. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening on the podcast. Catch you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Awesome.
Well, how'd we do, Joy?
You did fabulous.
Okay.
Well done.